St. Paul, the upstanding capital of Minnesota, named after a holy man, also has a dark, secret history. For decades, this city was a magnet for some of the most dangerous men in America.
When most people think of the infamous gangland days of America, they of course think of Chicago in the 1920s and 30s. But you might be surprised to know that St. Paul, Minnesota was safe haven for some of the most notorious gangsters in the land. It was all part of this corrupt arrangement sanctioned by the St. Paul police, an arrangement that would inevitably go bad.
John Dillinger, Machine Gun Kelly, Bugsy Siegel. When these public enemies needed to get away from it all, they rested up and partied down in St. Paul. To find out what brought them here, I'm meeting up with local historian Paul Maccabee. He's getting me into the Landmark Center to see the off-limits spaces inside that witnessed the beginning and end of the gangster era.
Wow, this is an amazing structure.
Yeah.
So this was the federal building here in St. Paul.
It was. This is where the FBI was headquartered.
What started out as a lavish post office and courthouse in 1902 evolved into an outpost for government agents, or G-men, during the Roaring '20s.
Congressman Andrew Volstead of Minnesota, the guy who wrote the Prohibition Act, was above our head, 4 stories on the 5th floor.
When Prohibition shut down legit boozing, there were big bucks to be made in bootleg liquor. In big cities, all hell broke loose. Submachine gun battles in the streets, cops on the take, and bank robberies in broad daylight. But things were different here in St. Paul.
Within a quarter-mile radius of where you and I are standing right now, virtually every major bank robber, kidnapper, and stick-up artist in America came for a little rest and relaxation.
What lured them here was the O'Connor system, named after crooked chief of police John O'Connor. When gangsters arrived in town, they paid a hefty bribe to the cops and were welcome to stay as long as they played by the chief's rules.
And the deal was you had to promise not to kill or rob anyone within the city limits of St. Paul. You could go to Minneapolis or Iowa or Wisconsin, kill anybody you wanted to.
But while the local cops looked the other way, J. Edgar Hoover, head of the FBI, was determined to make a name for himself and take the gangsters down. He brought the battle here to the federal courtrooms upstairs.
So this was a federal courtroom where the trials of who took place in here?
The gang of John Dillinger, the notorious bank robber.
In their brief, sensational run, Dillinger and his gang crisscrossed the Midwest, robbing over 24 banks and knocking over police arsenals to stock up on machine guns and bulletproof vests. Some saw him as a Robin Hood, stealing from fat cat bankers. But to J. Edgar Hoover, he was simply public enemy number 1.
You can't imagine how frustrating St. Paul was for J. Edgar Hoover. He knew that the St. Paul police were corrupt to the core. Dillinger was here, the most wanted man in America, and Hoover couldn't get him because he was under police protection.
Right.
When Dillinger's girlfriend, Billie Frechette, was captured in Chicago, Hoover had her hauled back to St. Paul for trial, hoping to lure Dillinger out into the open.
Looking down.
All the newspaper photographers would be down over here watching, because this was a big national story. The room was filled with FBI agents and U.S. Marshals, because everybody thought that Dillinger wasn't going to let his girl go to prison.
Dillinger didn't fall into the trap, but he did drive by to check on things. And he knew he could get away with it because, in a way, the whole city was part of his gang. Paul's getting me special access to the roof for a bird's-eye view of Dillinger's domain.
Whoa. Beautiful, it really is. This is the view towards the river, yeah?
That's the Mississippi River, where all the breweries got their water, both before and during Prohibition.
And that's the old hotel there.
The Lowry Hotel. Al Capone stayed there. There's the Minnesota Club, through which apparently there's a trapdoor tunnel leading to where the brothel is.
So there's this whole underworld here, literally.
And it's all intermixed. You're in a restaurant at the Minnesota Club. You knew there were gangsters next to you, but you felt safe, and you'd probably go back and tell your wife or girlfriend, "You won't believe who I had dinner with, John Dillinger." And that was cool.
So they can basically live the life that they dreamed of here. Why they go out and rob all those banks? Why they have all this cash?
Everyone in town knew that this building, the FBI headquarters, was a threat to their cozy criminal arrangement. But they probably didn't know about this.
There used to be a door?
Yes, sir, there used to be a door here.
So nobody gets up inside this. This used to be a door that goes up to the top of the tower. Whoa!
Yes, sir.
This is almost impossible. Are you gonna, you gonna bring the camera all the way up here like this? It's very, very tight. Just hand that thing to me. Okay, got it. Okay. This old iron door here that leads all the way out. Hello, St. Paul. Look at this. Here's a view of St. Paul even the people in St. Paul don't get to see. All of what you're seeing down here is the downtown hive of criminality of those days. The irony is that the city of St. Paul does pretty well through the Depression, whereas right down the river, Minneapolis is suffering. Through a time where that was ruinous to America, St. Paul held its own because they'd brokered a deal with the devil.
For decades, crime did pay in St. Paul. It was a setup that seemed too good to be true. And it was.
Everything's a vault down here.
Running a bank here was risky business.
Those are gun ports. No kidding.
That's coming up. And later,
Let me just see if I can slide in here.
I'm exploring another kind of underworld.
It's just one tunnel after another tunnel.